Now we're good. There we are. Okay, now we're in. Right on time. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. It's good to see you all. Cantor Tasek, we were just saying she's on the cold and windy Vancouver Island, but you're already there. So the fact that the ferries are closed and you really are an island, though.
Totally. And I'm watching the storm. I get to actually watch it happening. It's pretty crazy. My ocean view.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, we're all super excited about tomorrow night. I mean, we're excited about right now as well, but we're super excited about tomorrow night as we're going to join with Cantor Tausig and our whole temple community for our Lahitraot evening, which begins at 7 o'clock, but you can join us online as early as 6:45 right here or on whatever, however you're accessing us now, except for on Facebook. You'll be able to access online as well. Hopefully you received the link in the email. And we're excited for that evening, and we're excited for this evening and all parts in between.
Absolutely.
So let's begin. Page 128.
הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב שבת אחים גם יחד. And we'll continue at the bottom of page 129. Eilech Hamda Libi. Eilech Hamda Libi. Chusana ve'al natitalem. 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 Eilech Hamda Libi. Chusana ve'al natitalem.
So last night we celebrated Purim. Hopefully you were able to join us online. About 70 or so plus households did, as we celebrated with families at the beginning with our Purim spiel and shtick. It was pretty shticky. And then this incredible Megillah reading that took place between, I think, 8 or 9 Megillah readers, all the way to you out on the island, and then all parts in between. Many who had not read Megillat Esther before and had learned the trope, we were just talking about it before the service. It was really, really wonderful. And most of all, what was terrific about it was just to see so many people that we haven't seen in so long. And I commented last night that it was really this time last year that we had sort of our last big gathering at the synagogue. And I think it was the next day after Purim that I remember there was the JCC sports dinner, and the whole community was kind of trying to hold out hope that we could get that through without a COVID exposure or anything, as people are still understanding it. And then everything kind of shut down. Not kind of, it really did. And here we are still. And so part of Shabbat, of any Shabbos, but maybe this particular one, as we think of it as almost an anniversary of that time, is to look at Shabbat as a mirror, to see how we've changed from that time then to now. Certainly, we've become more comfortable with this technology, maybe too comfortable with it. But also, we've learned a lot about ourselves. We've learned a lot about our community and about resilience. And we've also learned about the things that we need that we aren't getting now. The socialization that maybe we took for granted, the ability to just show up in each other's lives, to be present physically, and the power of relationship and connection. And so all of those things, I think, for at least me, are swirling around in my mind on this Shabbos as I recognize just how much we've lost, and how much I hope and pray that with these vaccines we'll be able to return and restore. And that's the story of our people, right? We look back and reflect, even if it's Purim, on the tragedies that have befallen us. And then we look how we've grown from that and drawn strength from that and come out even stronger. My hope and my prayer is that we enter into this Shabbos maybe with a sense of of being beaten down, maybe with a sense of being over COVID, and that we will come out eventually stronger and better for it, not just as individuals, but as a congregation, as a broader community, and God willing, as a human people. So with that, as not yet the sermon, but a fair amount of it, let's continue page 131, Psalm 96, Shiru Adonai, Shir Chadash, we sing unto God a new song.
Shiru Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Adonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Adonai, Baruch Shemo, Basru miyom liyom Yeshuato, Sapru b'goyim, Kavodo b'chol ha'amim, Lifnotav, Ki gadol Adonai, Hol me'od, Norahu, Al kol Elohim, ay, ay, ay.
We'll turn ahead in our prayer books to page 142, if I got that right.
Correct.
Is that right? Yeah.
It is.
They haven't moved it on me yet. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Bachem LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Baruchuni LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Tzedchem LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu.
We turn back in our prayer books to page 138 as we welcome the Sabbath bride, Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabla Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Hishmiyanu el hamiuchad Adonai echad Ushmo echad l'shemo tiferet v'letehila Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabla likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh v'machsheva techila Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabla Mikdash melech ir melucha kumitzehi mitoch ha'pecha Rav lach shevet b'mekabacha v'hu yachamo alayechem la Lecha Dodi likrat kala nekabela mikdash melech ir melucha kumitzehi mitoch hapecha rav lach shevet be'amek habecha v'huyachamo alaychem lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Now verse 5.
Hitoreri, kiva orech, kumi ori, shir daberi, kavod Adonai, alayich nigla, lecha jodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom materet bala gam b'simcha u'tohala toch emunei am segula boi chala lecha jodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We turn to page 263 as we remain standing for Chatzi Kaddish, as we transition from those warm-up prayers to the heart of our service. And there's Rabbi Brown. Always right there.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba v'yamadi v'rachute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael bagala uv'izman karib v'himeru amen. Yeheshmei Rabba mevarach le'alam olam me'omaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalel shemei kedusha barichu le'ila min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata Damiram ve'alma ve'imeru. Amen. Baruchu et Adonai hamevorach.
Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vahed.
You may be seated. We turn together on page 265 for Ma'ariv Aravim. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher Bidvaro Ma'ariv Aravim. B'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim b'mishmeroteam barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom u'mevi layla, uma'avdil ben yom u'vein layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid imloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta Torah mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shofbeinu uvkumeinu nasiach b'chokacha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'b'mitzvotecha leolam va'ed ki hem chayinu ve'yorech yameinu u'vahem negei yomam b'layla ve'ahavatecha al tasir mimenu le'olam Elohim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לעוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, הייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen.
Amen. We'll continue now as we sing our song of redemption, as we are reminded of our freedom, not only from the story of the Exodus, but from the story of Purim as well, the story that we learn over and over in our history of what it means to be Jewish, is to really celebrate and savor that freedom that we have been granted and not to take it for granted. So let us join our voices together. Mi Chamocha, page 270.
Mi chamocha belim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele, malchotecha ra'u v'necha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze lianu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch, Adonai yimloch, le'olam va'ed. V'nemor, kifad Adonai et Yaakov, Ogalo miad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Ka'al Yisrael.
Amen. Ashkivenu, we take a moment to give thanks for safety and protection each and every evening. Those rough waters that we were talking about at the beginning between us and the island, between you, Cantor Naomi, and us, they will pass as we can watch them safely from our homes. We can be given I think a real sense of calm, knowing that we are in our homes and are safe, and knowing that in that safety, in that feeling of security, we find God. That is, in many ways, how we have that sense of the divine in our lives. So let's join together.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. אמן. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, לשלום. והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. Amen.
Page 272, Vishamru.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. Yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat Shabbat, yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat Shabbat, yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim et haaretz ubayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash. Yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat Shabbat, yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat Shabbat, yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom.
So let us prepare now for the Amidah, our prayer that we offer before the Holy One. If you will, I invite you to rise in your home and join us on page 274.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel chasadim tovim v'konei hakol, v'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot, u'mevi geula livnei v'neihem, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר מושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח מוריד הגשם. מכלכל חיים בחסד, וחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני העפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדום מלוך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום ילדוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Amen. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Amen.
You may be seated at home. We join with Cantor Naomi on page 277 at the bottom paragraph, 3 lines down, Kadshenu b'mitzvotecha.
Kadshenu b'mitzvotecha v'tein chalkeinu b'toratecha. Kadshenu b'mitzvotecha v'tein chalkeinu b'toratecha. Hi, hi, hi. Sabeinu mituvecha v'samechenu b'shuhatecha. Sabeinu mituvecha v'samechenu b'shuhatecha. Yadadai dai 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 yadai dai 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 yadai 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 dai dai yadai dai 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 hi yadai yadai dai 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 yadai dai 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 yadai dai 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 yadai dai 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 yadai dai dai yadai yadai dai dai
We'll join together in these familiar English words in the middle of 278. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we all live in such a way that this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel u'tehi l'ratzon Tamid avodat Yisrael. Yisrael Amecha. El karov lechol koraf b'nei elavadecha v'choneinu. Shefach ruchacha aleinu v'techazen eineinu b'shuvecha leTzion. Berachamim. Baruch atah Adonai Hamachazir Shechinato LeTzion.
Take a moment now for a prayer of gratitude as we bring into our hearts those blessings, the big ones, the small ones, those that we often forget to even say thank you for. Prayer gives us an opportunity to pause and just take that moment of gratitude. So let's just take a moment of silence to call into our hearts all for which we are grateful. And we'll join together in the middle of 281.
Ve'al kulam, Yitbarach v'yitromam, Shimcha B'keinu, Tamid le'olam va'ed. Ve'al kulam, Yitbarach v'yitromam, Shimcha B'keinu, Tamid le'olam va'ed. Ve'cholchem yoducha salah, V'halalu et shimcha be'emet, Ha'el Yeshuateinu ve'ezrateinu salah, Baruch atah Adonai, Hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh leodod.
Our prayer for Shalom, for peace in our world, page 282.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Ata Melech Adon Lecho HaShalom. Ki Ata Melech Adon Lecho HaShalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael B'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah Adonai Mavarech et Amo Yisrael Shalom.
Amen. Let's take a moment now for silent prayer.
Od yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Od yavo
Od yavo
Shalom
Shalom
Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Od yavo
Od yavo
Shalom
Shalom
Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Od yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol yoshvei tevel.
I still miss singing with you, Naomi.
Same here. I was
I
feeling
like-
the waves reaching each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like those moments of back and forth. Friends, we're going to turn our attention now to our Misha Berach for those who are in need of healing. I'll invite you, if you'd like to turn to page 371. In the middle of the page, you'll find the words to our Misha Berach. And we want to call into our hearts the names of those for whom we are praying. We pray not only for those whom we know personally, but those who are part of our extended community. There's really a beautiful sense of being held in prayer by a community that I think transcends personal relationship. It is about reaching out and caring for others, knowing that others are caring for you in a difficult time can be so very powerful. And so this Shabbat, we're going to pray together for healing for Leo Levine, Dr. Arthur Ross, Esther Brindle, Mel Karp, Yana Timko, Dr. Dimitri Zanazin, Lynn Shabo, Shayna Stawicki, Maylor Valance, Elliot Pohl, Sanford Cohen, Jean Angus, Sarah Chiachi, Kim Bennett, Sarah Bat Avraham Vasara, Igor Ilyasov, Ed Ozer, David Shlomo Gorny, Ronnie Goldberg, Andrea Jarjbiak, Neil Tapley. I invite you, if there are other names of people you are holding in your prayers for healing, to share them out loud, either in your home or in your heart. And together we might pray that they find refuah shlema, complete healing. We'll join together with Cantor Naomi.
Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishabeirach imotenu Mekor habracha lehavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
I miss singing with Cantor Naomi too. I miss singing with people. I actually, my window's open. I wonder what my neighbors think every Friday night and Saturday morning.
Sometimes I experiment with harmonies.
Right.
Because I know no one can hear me, but I'm sure it sounds very bizarre.
Well, it was lovely, and Cantor-tastic, thank you again. Just you add so much. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I want to share some brief announcements with you before the drash this evening. Let me share my screen as well, and hopefully I can do this without messing anything up. So tomorrow morning, of course, services are at 10 a.m. I hope you can join us for that. And after the service, if you would, stick around for our virtual oneg, our virtual kiddush on Zoom, so we can spend some time chatting with each other and connecting. It's been wonderful these last couple of Shabbatot where we've had a visiting cantor to talk about that, but we can also on this Shabbos just talk about whatever's going on in people's lives and share a kiddush, bring your own challah. So hopefully you can join us for that. And then of course, tomorrow night, not to be forgotten, I'll skip ahead to it here. Oh, that was Purim, is our celebration of Cantor-tastic. So join us for Lahitraot at 7 o'clock. There's still time to register. You can register online on the temple website. And that online program actually begins at 6:45, and the show will begin at 7. It's going to go for about 90 minutes, and you'll be able to access it on whatever platform you're currently watching us on, except for Facebook. It won't be on Facebook, but join us on all those other platforms if you would like. A reminder that next week we have a very special Shabbat. Another visiting cantor is going to be joining us. This is Cantor Alicia Stillman from Temple Israel in Boston, Massachusetts. And it's also our International Refugee Shabbat. And in preparation for that, I've been talking with the two families that we've recently settled here in Canada, the Mustafa and the Isa family. And as well, today I had a chance to chat with Esther and Zara, the young couple that we are sponsoring that is currently in Kurdistan and has been waiting for 3 years since we began the sponsorship process with them to come to Canada. They've been waiting, I think, far too long. And we're hoping that tomorrow night, or excuse me, next week when we chat with them and share their story with you, that we can light a fire under us as a congregation and under our Canadian government to move forward with the refugee plans that I know have been put very much on hold because of COVID. So join us for that next weekend. Minyan is this week, Mondays and Wednesdays, 7:45 and 8:30. Torah study continues with Jeff Balin on Wednesday, March 3rd. Talmud classes on Tuesdays. We already had Purim. It was a blast. If you missed it, it's on our temple website. Join us on Wednesday, March 10th at 7 o'clock for a discussion with Gershom Gornberg, an Israeli historian and journalist, as we'll be talking about Israel and America and a changed political era. And this is in partnership with J Street, as well as Congregation Beth Shalom, Congregation Kol Ami, and Temple to Hirsch Sinai. All of them are in the Seattle, Washington area, and ourselves here at Temple Shalom in Vancouver. Other stuff I think you can find on our temple website or the email that was sent out to you, so we'll leave it at that. So on this night after Purim, the holiday where we are commanded to tell jokes, laugh, and even get so drunk that we cannot tell the difference between good and bad, many Jews are pondering a question that goes to the heart of the humor that this holiday is established to celebrate. When does a joke stop being funny and become instead offensive and even dangerous? Many in the Jewish community are debating this very question after a joke was told last week on Saturday Night Live by comedian Michael Che during the Weekend Update segment of the world-famous and most watched show. Che, in his character as a news anchor reporting on current events, challenged Israel's claim to success at vaccinating 50% of Israelis against COVID-19. He said, quoting, "Israel is reporting that they vaccinated half of their population," said Che, the show's co-head writer, "and I'm going to guess it's the Jewish half." That was the joke. To the uninformed listener, Che was implying falsely that Israel is only vaccinating Jews against COVID-19, when in fact, all of Israel's citizens, Jews and Palestinians alike, are being vaccinated. Jewish organizations angrily denounced the joke as anti-Semitic, noting that Israel was in fact vaccinating its Arab as well as Jewish citizens. But others noticed that the joke did point to a real problem: Israel's failure to vaccinate Palestinians in the West Bank who aren't Israeli citizens, but who are nevertheless under Israel's occupation. And still others raise the counter-argument that jokes aren't meant to be taken literally, and the people who are known for our humor, indeed some citing this very holiday of Purim as a prime example, would do well to laugh along with others. Why can't the people who basically invented the joke take a joke? Some were said. Was the rhetorical question asked by many in and outside of our community. The incident raises serious questions. Are we Jews being overly sensitive? Doesn't our transition from a powerless people to a powerful people require us to develop a thicker skin and to recognize that with attention will always come criticism, not to speak of biting jokes and satirical political commentary? More substantively, assuming that we're not treating Palestinians, certainly on the West Bank, the same way we treat Israeli Jews and Palestinians, do we really have the right to be so outraged? As my teacher, Rabbi Daniel Hartman, observed, a joke which has a kernel of truth may hurt, but it is the kernel, not the joke, which is the issue. Judaism has a long tradition of worrying about the danger of words. We never accepted that dichotomy that sticks and stones are dangerous and words are not, that they would never hurt. Rather, in Judaism, we acknowledge that words can do great harm. Words, in fact, can kill. The Torah and later rabbinic writings make clear that the sin of lashon hara, of gossip and of speaking ill of another person, they are sins worse than murder in the eyes of many Talmudic scholars. Because where physical violence has a definitive end, the sin of gossip, of lies and hurtful speech can go on hurting and reoccurring and hurting again and again. In Judaism, words matter. It was through words that God created the heavens and the earth. Bereshit bara Elohim, the Torah begins. At the beginning, God spoke. And it is through words that human beings can crush a spirit and mortally wound a soul. Some of us know that personally. And still, there is a part of our tradition which says jokes are sacred. So much so that many Jewish jokes are so well known that we simply refer to them by their number, or with the shorthand of the punchline, like, it might lead to dancing, or a priest, a minister, and a rabbi walk into a bar. In Judaism, you don't censor jokes. That's deep in Jewish culture. Jewish humor is irreverent. And last night, we quite literally laughed in the face of our own death, and then we ate cookies shaped like our tormentor's hat. That's funny. That's dark. That's cathartic. That's Jewish humor. Indeed, it's the very example of gallows humor we might have invented. But maybe this joke crossed the line. Maybe when it is, as this was, a political joke told on the most important political satire show in America, a show that shaped the culture of a whole generation, my generation, and when this joke portrays Jews as racists and comes out during a coordinated and global campaign, the BDS movement, the Boycott, Divest, and Sanction movement, to portray the Jewish state as an apartheid state. And when the joke is based on an outright lie that Israel distinguishes between its Jewish citizens and its Arab citizens, which it does not with regard to the COVID vaccine, that what we are really dealing with is more than the warning of Jewish tradition to be mindful of your words, to watch your speech. Words can kill. When is a joke not funny? Perhaps it is when your most basic legitimacy as a people or as a race or a nation is being challenged. Now, let me be clear. When you talk about the Jews, let alone joke about Jews, there's a lot of baggage and landmines that come with us. When you accuse Jews or the Jewish state of discriminating against others, or of pushing to the head of the line, or of hoarding life-saving medicine, there are associations here that touch a deep Jewish nerve, of blood libels, of dual loyalties, and anti-Semitic tropes. Our Jewish antenna, they go up. And while we as Jews may be especially attuned to this kind of mischaracterization, in truth, every race, every culture, every nation has its red lines. I won't repeat the litany of offensive and over-the-line jokes that have been made about marginalized people, or the outright lies told about free and democratic nations, but they are well known to us, well known to others, and we also know well never to repeat them. The danger in Che's joke, which wasn't even really very sophisticated in its attempt at humor, is that it perpetuates an already rapidly spreading narrative that Israel is white supremacist, that Israel is racist, that Israel is apartheid. And the more these lies are repeated, the more they become accepted as truth. And we know that when something becomes a conceptual given in society, it's not clear how to effectively combat it, especially if you're on the defensive against it from the beginning. And so we draw hard lines and we say, do not cross here, because once you let them over that line, they are within the gates. In fact, Judaism speaks directly to Che's actions. In Proverbs chapter 26, verses 17 through 19, we are taught, and it's as though this was written for the moment. Someone who passes by and gets involved in a conflict that is not their own is like one who grabs a dog by the ears, like a madman who casts firebrands and arrows and death. That's the person who deceives their neighbor and says, "But I was just joking." That's the quote from Proverbs, from Mishle, written thousands of years ago. What Che did in articulating this joke based on an outright lie and fallacy was to cut into a conflict that was not his own, and he clearly knows nothing about, and that caused undeserved pain, like grabbing a dog by its ears. He opened up a hornet's nest and then, like the text, shirks any responsibility by saying, "I was only joking." That said, let's be rational and not hysterical. Not every person who makes a joke about Jews is an enemy or an anti-Semite. Michael Che is not part of a larger cabal against the Jewish people. But his joke fed a lie and targeted a long persecuted people, us, the Jewish people. That was wrong and that was hurtful. There's no doubt that Che's argument is factually incorrect. 20% of Israeli citizens are Palestinian Arabs. And all Israeli citizens, like in Canada, are members of the National Health Plan. And everybody has access to the vaccine, not like in Canada, and is being vaccinated. But the joke may be a little painful because it's pointing to something that we could have done, should have done. As Rabbi Hartman pointed out, it's not the joke that hurts. It's the kernel of truth within the joke that touches a nerve. The critique of Israel in relation to COVID-19 and the Palestinians is based on two aspects. One is legal, and the other is moral. The legal actually has very little weight. The Oslo Accords grant full autonomy to the Palestinians on health matters. The Palestinian Authority, in the past, made it clear to Israel that they did not want Israeli intervention or help in their public health system, and they made it explicitly clear with regard to COVID-19. The moral argument begins with the first moral responsibility that any state has, and that is a moral responsibility to its own citizens. And Israel is still in the process of fulfilling its moral responsibility to vaccinate its own citizens, Jews and non-Jews alike. But at now 70, almost 75% of Israel approaching the point where they're about to fulfill that moral responsibility because they're about to all become vaccinated. And then what? What is the moral responsibility in a global pandemic for Israel to those living in lands occupied by Israel? In Judaism, in the Judaism as I practice it, and as I teach it, the legal does not excuse me from the moral responsibility. Even in strict orthodoxy, we are commanded to have empathy for others, to live by the words of Torah, b'chai b'chem, not to let them be the end of us. Morality takes precedent. It is moral and legal for Israel to first care for its own citizens, Jew and non-Jew alike, and without distinction. And Israel is doing that better than any other country in the world. But it is also moral that Israel, when it can, and that time appears to be soon at hand, turn its resources to those that it is also has a moral responsibility for, those who live under Israeli occupation. Israel is now vaccinating the youngest adults in its population. It could have, under the moral question, for example, decided to offer vaccine and resources to acquire vaccine to the Palestinians once Israel had vaccinated, let's say, those that were 60 or over, knowing that those in the younger age cohorts are less likely to experience hospitalization and death. It could have said to the Palestinians, now, here, if you haven't already started vaccinating those 60 and older in your population, as we have done, then please take these shots or these resources, and then we'll work back and forth on the age groups down the ladder. Part of Israel's role as a global leader and an exemplar of a social democracy is a willingness to be judged by the highest moral standards amongst the community of nations. And as a Jewish state, Israel must accept that the Jewish nation, just like the Jewish people, is held to and answers to a higher authority and a higher standard. Che's joke was factually wrong, and Israel is in the unique position now to do more for the Palestinians than it has done thus far. I would prefer that the Jewish people went beyond the legal and set a new standard of moral ethical behavior for all nations and all people. I think that's our calling as an Or LaGoyim, to be a light unto the nations, as our Torah teaches. You know, people laugh at Canadians for being too nice That's a Canadian joke. Imagine a world where they laugh at the Jewish people and the Jewish state for being too moral, too empathic, too generous. For me, that's no joke. It's an aspiration. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Amen.
Yasher koach, Rabbi Dan.
Thank you, Rabbi Brown.
Excellent.
Yasher koach.
Thank you.
So, friends, we will turn back in our Sidurim now as we prepare for the conclusion of our service with Aleinu on page 586, and I invite you to please rise at home.
Aleinu l'shabech l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים עמהו, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום ושבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא אלוהים, בשמיים עמו, בארץ מתחתנו. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We prepare now for the mourner's Kaddish. I want to share a reading. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. In this Shabbat, we remember with reverence and for blessing the names of those for whom we say Kaddish. In this week, we continue to be in a period of Shloshim for Susan Sultana, Ted Cohn, Michael Frimmer, Zelda Handelsman, Gerard Leon Mutal, Devorah Rotem, and Jacob Wilczynski. And we mark yahrzeit this week of George Arato, Gita Tova Bell, Miklos Berkovitz, Leon Selig Burlow, Michael Bowman, Henry Breezer, Eve Buskey, David Coblin, Alex Cohen, Glenn Dirksen, Antonia Farago, Harley Felstein, Maxine Gelfand, Noreen Gillitz, Hyman Gunn, Harold Hammer, Sarah Israelovich, Maurice Cantor, Danny Carton, Sarah Elsie Katz, Esther Corbin, Marcelli Korkuchansky, Harold Krivel, Ronald Lazar, Elva Lewis, Raymond Lieberman, Myron Lurie, Leonard Marks, Carl Matej, Rose Morris, Joyce Ornstein, Sandy Ozer, Lily Karpanos Polonsky, Nate Ratson, Moritz Rosen, Ruth P. Rosenberg, Leah Itta Schneider, Lillian Seelig, Jack Slabinski, Lenny Smith, Pauline Sugarman, Anna Turovskaya, Sheila Werb, Sid Wiener, and George Woolstone. I invite you, if there are other names, people you are thinking of for Kaddish, to share them out loud in your home or in your heart. As together we join on page 598 in the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'alal shmei dekudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlam Rabbah min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Yehi zichronam livracha, may their memories always be a blessing. As together we say, amen.
Yasher koach. Shabbat shalom, my colleagues. That's Naomi. We're so looking forward to tomorrow night again. Please join us tomorrow morning at 10, tomorrow at noon after the service for a virtual kiddush and oneg, and then tomorrow night come online by 6:45. The show begins at 7. We're going to have a wonderful evening as we celebrate our beloved cantor Naomi Taussig.
Thank you. I can't wait. I'm so excited. Like you can't tell.
What should we sing?
Let's sing. Oh, say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. Oh, say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Night.